Hey, Kris.
Hey, Drew.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Why, yes, I have.
When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had a lot of questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do we make money podcasting? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now just by reading this ad.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now?
That means if you want to get a podcast going and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. Join me and Kris and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
What makes you afraid? Some of All Fear lives at the crossroads between our greatest phobias and the horror movies we love to experience. Part pop culture and part psychology. It's time to find out why we're all so scared of the dark.
I feel like I'm quiet today.
You are.
I feel like my voice is not projecting the way it normally does.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Where's my radio DJ voice?
I don't know. Find your late night FM DJ voice.
Hey, folks. Ladies and gentlemen.
No, more FM.
More FM? More not AM?
Not AM.
More FM?
FM.
You're not talking at all. You barely. I can't even hear you.
FM DJ voice.
Nobody can hear that.
You can hear it in
We're
your
on
soul.
an iPhone. We don't even have microphones.
It's called a micro sound. It
You mean like-
massages your brain.
You mean like, hey, welcome to Love 104.3.
Yes, just like that.
We're bringing you love songs on the coast.
Yes, perfect.
Love songs on the coast.
Oh, this is my childhood.
Anybody who grew up in Southern California?
Oh.
Hi, Feardos.
Hi, Feardos. Feardos.
That's what we're calling you people now. We have
Yeah.
a new moniker for you, thanks to Heath's trademark copyrighted suggestion that he wants royalties.
Feardos.
The Feardos. And I'm a fan of this new moniker. I like
am
it.
too. I embrace it fully.
Yeah, so we're back. We're back again. We had a lot of fun with our last episode.
Oh gosh, chickens.
A lot of poultrygeist, trauma stuff this week.
Trauma.
Even Lloyd Kaufman commented on our Instagram this week.
That was a big moment for you,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
the director himself commented on our Instagram, which I was excited about. I think that's pretty cool. I've become a trauma fan just from the last couple of weeks and the craziness that is the fear of chickens.
Yeah, diving into the craziness is really exciting. It got us to some weird places.
Yeah. Yeah, we both need to project more in this episode, I think. We are both really quiet today.
I know.
What's the deal?
Well, we came back from vacation, I think, and we're kind of just so amped up with trying to get back to work and that we're just a little bit more withdrawn than usual.
So we're losing our voices? I don't understand. What's going on? I got to get my podcast voice going here. So, I'm Drew. This is my beautiful wife, Kris.
Hello.
And we host this little podcast called Some of All Fear. So if you're new to the podcast, this is us. I have a degree in medieval and Renaissance history, religious history, and all I have to show for it is this lousy podcast.
And all of my affection.
And also, I really love horror movies. So that's my pedigree.
You're such a nerd.
Now, my beautiful wife here, she is super smart and is a practicing mental health therapist with multiple degrees in brain ninja-ing.
Yeah, that's the technical term for it too.
That's what I heard.
Brain ninja.
That's what they call you.
MJ.
Brain ninja MJ.
Yeah.
That's the is that what's on the wall?
Yes.
In your office?
Yes.
I like that. And like I said, this is the Some of All Fear podcast. We have been growing consistently, which is fun. We hit 300 downloads this week. So thank you for listening. we're really excited about that. That's 300 more than I thought we'd ever get.
Right.
I thought we would just be talking to ourselves.
It's fascinating. I didn't think anyone would listen.
And I think we've got, like, right now about 60 consistent listeners, and it's growing every week. So that's really cool. So if you're following us, you can go to our Facebook page. We have all the social media stuff going. We have a Facebook page, Some of All Fear Podcast. We have a Twitter page going. So check us out at Some of All Fear Pod, P-O-D. And we are all over the place when it comes to the podcast platforms. We're on Apple iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Breaker, we're on Overcast, we're on Radio Public, and all the other podcasting platforms that you can think of. So please subscribe. Please give us a rating. Please leave us some comments. Comments are great. We haven't gotten that many, and we would like some more. So if you're listening to us consistently, take a few seconds and go and give us a quick rating on whatever platform you're on, and leave us a little review or a little comment. We would love to hear your feedback.
Be one of the first Feardos to help shape the future of this podcast.
Yeah, you're groundbreaking. You are setting podcasting trends right now. The first phobia brain / horror podcast of all time. I think.
Brain.
I think.
I like how you just call it brain. And not like psychology.
Brain.
Like, she has degrees in brain science. And I'm like, no, I don't.
Yes.
That's a very
brain
different
ninja-ing.
thing. And brain ninja-ing.
Brain ninja-ing is a very technical term.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive.
I do not claim this at all.
It's totally true.
There's no NJ degree.
Absolutely. NJ-ing.
NJ.
We heard from some friends this week about our about our podcast. Our friends Noelle and Sean have been listening and giving us some feedback, and we really appreciate it. Very encouraging feedback.
Yes, thank you.
Our friend Veronica,
aka
retired roller derby queen,
Eat Schmidt. That's my girl.
She sent us some messages about the podcast and gave us some cool feedback as well. I ran into Lacey and Wayne.
Oh man, what a fun night you had.
A little drunk at the bar a couple nights ago. I was a little drunk. They weren't a little drunk. And got some great feedback. I ended up back at their apartment because Wayne wanted to show me his amazing horror. Well, he wanted to give me a microphone so that our podcast could sound better, which I will say, Wayne, like,
is this the adult version of luring a child?
It works, maybe.
Come back to my apartment, and I'll give you a microphone. You can check out my VHS collection.
Maybe. We tried the microphone, Wayne, and it sounds awesome. I'm getting a second one right now, so that in the future, this will sound hopefully way better. I'm working on trying to figure out how to
even when we're quiet.
Yeah, how to make this better so that we can actually talk into microphones and not just do this on our iPhone. So he let me borrow a microphone. I'm going to be putting it to good use soon. I actually recorded some of the clips from this episode on that microphone because it sounded a lot better as well. So thanks, Wayne. And he's also got a kick-ass VHS horror collection that I'm super envious of. And
what was your favorite one that you saw?
Dude, he had like 3 copies of like Evil Dead. He had. You know,
I'm a sucker for Evil Dead. I love Bruce Campbell.
He had what did he have that was? He had something where it was like he had one original release of one VHS and one that was like a later release. Return of the Living Dead. He had some super cool shit.
Our friends have some really cool collections.
They do. Like Metal Chris.
Like Metal Chris's collection.
Metal Chris is really into horror scores. So he has like a crazy collection of horror records from scores from like almost like every horror movie that I've run into. It seems like he has the score for, and he's been sending us some clips from some audio clips that I need to start integrating into the shows because there's some really cool stuff that he sent over.
Now that we have a good microphone.
Yeah, once we actually learn how to do any of this stuff, I'll start integrating.
You're doing great.
Integrating some better audio stuff. So.
I just show up.
Yeah, right. You're the brains behind the operation. Yeah. So we just got back from New Orleans. We didn't record a podcast in New Orleans, as you're probably well aware by now.
We are so sorry.
We thought about it.
The day that we were going to do it, too, Monday, I ended up waking up with a massive migraine and throwing up for 3 hours and passing out after taking a leave and then waking up and I was fine.
I was pretty sure that I was going to have to put her down.
I thought vacation was over. I was like, this is how it ends.
Yeah.
Does my insurance is definitely not cover out here.
Yeah.
It's going to be really expensive out-of-network costs.
It was really intense. Like she was like nonstop throwing up. It was crazy. And but it only lasted like a couple hours and then you fell asleep and you woke up and you felt fine.
To all migraine sufferers, oh dear God, be with you.
Yeah.
That was miserable. And if that's a tiny sliver of what you feel, oh, my heart. That was awful.
It was brutal.
I thought I was going to die. You walked in after going to the store, and I was just lying on the cold, like, ground of our Airbnb.
Yeah.
And you just had, like, every medicine and anything imaginable trying to figure out what was going on.
I assumed vacation was over at that point. I was like, okay, we're done. This is it.
Well, but then we got to enjoy Lafayette, thankfully. Kind of got over that.
Yeah, it was great. We went to New Orleans first, so we had like a good 4 days in New Orleans, which was a blast. And I gotta say though, on our way out there, like our aerophobia episode was playing in my head the whole time, and while we were waiting to fly to Denver for our connection to New Orleans, like John Denver, the Harbinger of Death, was pounding in my head because and it wouldn't stop playing. I was humming Rocky Mountain High the whole time we were in the airport.
Yeah, didn't you play it too?
No, I did not play it, but Final Destination and John Denver was going over and over in my head the whole time.
Well, it didn't help that our friends posted on our Facebook, like
Metal Chris.
An exploding plane.
Yeah, he posted the night before we left, he posted an exploding plane and referenced our aerophobia episode. What a dick.
Oh, man. Don't be such a
Chris.
boring hole.
Such an asshole.
Boring hole.
But we did some really cool shit in New Orleans. We had a lot of fun.
We did all the things. We ate all the food. We went to all of the cemetery, number 2.
Yeah, we did some cemetery stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We did the Museum of Death.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. If you haven't been to the Museum of Death, I think I've already mentioned this, but if you live anywhere, if you go to LA, go to the Museum of Death. If you go to New Orleans, go to the Museum of Death. It's pretty badass if you're into morbid, weird shit.
And
like
we met the guy that owns it.
Yeah, the owner. We met the owner, talked to him for a while.
Really fascinating.
Yeah, cool stuff. They had Kevorkian's like death machine there.
What about that X-ray that you saw?
Oh, they had Albert Fish's X-ray where because Albert Fish liked to put little like needles like into his urethra and like into his
I don't even have one and it's painful.
Oh, dude, he did some gnarly stuff. He would and so they had this X-ray of his like
really fascinating, like
his
pelvis,
abdomen, pelvis, and it just had like all these little needles sticking into it. So and if you don't know Albert Fish, he was a serial killer who killed a bunch of little kids. He was kind of an asshole.
So yeah, you can go see that.
But you can see that at the New Orleans Museum of Death.
And we saw that. Some things you can't unsee, bro.
Yeah, it was gnarly, but it was awesome. I love that place. It's very creepy and very cool. So check it out. The Apothecary Museum was also very cool.
That was rad.
Which I thought was like all these old like medicine. It was going through like the history of pharmacology and like medicine and had all the old like Hadacol and all the ways they used to treat diseases,
any number of disorders,
including like
maladies.
Like how to take heroin to like make you feel better and cocaine.
Feel anything? Take heroin.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff was cool. And the Voodoo Museum was cool.
That one was cool.
They had a lot of the creepy voodoo dolls and
the creepiest part of that museum was the very skinny hallways and lots of people.
Skinny hallways and the fact that they hadn't cleaned it in like 30 years.
That was for the authentic voodoo look.
Yeah, it definitely had like cobwebs and dust like from every corner. But I enjoyed it.
And they had stuff everywhere. People had left stuff as tribute everywhere, and you would be so tempted to take something, except for I like have this strong belief that anybody that did take anything would have some sort of bad juju following them.
Yeah,
like
they
it
left
just
cash.
Like no one touch it. Just don't stay away from it.
Yeah, I think it'd be a very bad idea to take something off of the voodoo altar at the Voodoo Museum.
No, but I could see someone doing
that
it.
shit would be following you home. No doubt about it. But I had a lot of fun, and we did go cruise around the old cemeteries, which is relating to our topic today.
We took some fun boomerangs.
We did. We're doing a special. We're still doing, since we didn't record in New Orleans, we're still doing a special episode because we had already started thinking about it. We had already started doing some research on it. So we're going to do Coimetrophobia today, which is the fear of cemeteries because of our New Orleans themed experience. So that's what we're going to talk about in our phobia later on. And we got to experience some of that creepy ass cemetery shit firsthand.
Oh, it was so beautiful though. It was such a beautiful day, and it was so quiet. We didn't see but one other person besides our group.
Oh, in the cemetery? Yeah. Yeah. It was just us and our friends Michelle and Dave who came with us. We went on a trip. We went on the trip with them and spent the first 4 days with them, and then we split up. But
wasn't that when we walked across the street and we saw that gentleman lying on the floor from the homeless camp? Yeah. And then the cops came, and then the fire departments came, and then there was like 10 trucks with flashing lights, and we're not sure what happened.
Dave was like, that dude's dead. We're like, great, walking around the cemetery.
Oh, man. It was not in the greatest neighborhood, but we had a great time exploring.
And then we went to Lafayette, Louisiana, which is where you went to school. Mm-hmm. She was a raging Cajun at the University of Lafayette, and we stayed in a house that was built in, 1901?
I believe so.
Something like that, 1905, 1901, something like that. And the guy who owned it, it was it's an Airbnb, but it's an old house.
The Duchess.
Called the Duchess, yeah. So check it out in Lafayette. It's very cool. If you're into like kind of strange little weird places,
to stay. Yeah.
Old clawfoot tub in the room. A lot of weird, creepy art. But the guy who owned it was this cool tattooed up dude who just decided to buy, he was probably about our age, and decided to buy an Airbnb. He had done this kind of thing before.
Well, he bought a mansion, and then he converted it into 5 apartments, and then made it into an Airbnb because his parents had owned a bed and breakfast, and he had been in the restaurant industry for a long time and was also a musician.
Yeah.
So
the musician part was really cool.
That was the greatest. He served us tea juleps, which was basically just sweet tea vodka, which gave Drew nightmares of that one time with sweet tea vodka. Oh yeah, I had a bad experience with sweet tea vodka, but it was like a sweet tea vodka or ish sweet tea something. I don't know. It was good. It definitely gave me some flashbacks. But then he played basically the history of Cajun music for us, and gave us a whole rundown on the history of like Zydeco and Cajun music, starting with like Irish music. Yeah. And
the dude had like a kick-ass voice, played like 6 different instruments, had like
at
a little stage.
Time.
Yeah, dude, he was awesome. It was a really, really cool experience. So if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely check out the Duchess in Lafayette, Louisiana, if you're driving through, for sure.
Yeah, there's like 5 things to check out in Lafayette. There's like the university, the Lark Acadian village that we went to.
That was cool. Yeah, like that was a history of like the Cajun people, because Lafayette, like if you don't know, like New Orleans is kind of Creole country, right? Mm-hmm. Down south.
More Creole.
Creole and Creole and Cajun is different, and so the Cajuns are more up in Lafayette, and they have a really interesting
Creole's
culture.
more Haitian, Cajuns more French.
French Canadian, right? They came down from France.
Well, they got kicked out of Nova Scotia after they got kicked out of France.
So really interesting history. Like I was really fascinated by it all, and the Cajun. What was it? What was the other thing we did? Just slipped my mind. What was it?
Cajun Village?
No. Oh, Avery Island.
Avery Island.
Yeah, so where Tabasco's made.
That was fun.
We went and did the tour of the Tabasco factory, which is on this island in a big old swamp area. We got
to taste so many kinds of Tabasco, including Tabasco ice cream.
Yeah, super good.
That was fun.
Saw lots of alligators.
And that island is beautiful.
It was pretty badass. I enjoyed that whole tour was really cool. I enjoyed that. It
was kind of a self-led tour too, so we got to stop and we were within feet of a lot of alligators.
Yeah, it was rad.
And it was a nice
Which
day.
you have to do when you're in Louisiana, right?
You do.
I mean, that's like the thing.
I mean, my campus has alligators.
And we also drank a lot. We did a lot of drinking in New Orleans. We did a lot of partying. We partied in this building that was built in 1716. That was super cool. And we did a lot of. We ate like a ton ton of incredible food, and we had, I don't know, it was a lot of fun.
Oysters and just everything, but now
so many oysters.
We're back.
Moister than an oyster.
Yeah, we're back, and we finally have had regular bowel movements. And
you get really bad travel ass, don't you?
I do. I call
travel
it vacation bum.
Yeah, you get vacation
travel ass. Gosh, you're so vulgar.
Yeah, vacation ass is what it's called. I don't get that. I have no problem.
I do. Oh man! But we are happy to be home.
So now that we've talked about your regular bowel movements,
just in case everyone was wondering,
I'm sure they were. Do you have a game show or our favorite game show ready for us?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Now it's time for everybody's favorite phobia-based trivia game.
What the fear? You say it now.
What the fear?
There you go. Okay, you have to say it like that.
That's right, feardos. It's time for Kris to prove just what a giant stupid jackass I really am.
Yahoo! Wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
You changed that up.
Yeah, well, you know.
Oh, that's not nice. Don't self-deprecate and then make me agree with you.
Giant stupid jackass. Yeah, you married me. What's that make you? A giant stupid jackass lover.
That's true.
That's what it makes you.
Jackass lover.
I don't think that's a song.
No, I just made it one. Are you ready, jackass love?
I'm ready. Let's play What's the Fear.
Are you ready, my jackass?
Are you ready for some What's the Fear? Did you even say What's the Fear this time?
What the fear?
Yeah, I mean, I know you said it in the
What the fear?
In the fun clip we put in, but
I know. Can never quite say it that good. That's why you made it the clip.
All right.
Okay, are you
ready? What
ready?
do you got for me?
Okay, your first one is omphalophobia.
Spell it for me.
O-M-P-H-A-L-O phobia. Omphalophobia.
O-M-P-H-A.
Uh-huh.
Omphalophobia. Omphalophobia. The fear of giant penises.
Why in the world did you go there?
I don't know, because is like everywhere, like omni or whatever, and then phal is like phallic.
The word foul in anything throws you off every time because you immediately go
think
phallic.
Well, I don't know.
But it's wrong.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It might be kind of right, I guess. But it's the fear of belly buttons.
Well, that's close to the penis.
It's closer to the penis than other areas of the body.
Yeah, than like the nose.
But you'll be surprised. This submission was a fan submission. Metal Kris.
Oh, yeah?
Has omphalophobia.
He has a fear of belly buttons?
Yeah, no one is allowed to touch his belly button. He doesn't like them.
Does he not like to see them?
No, he doesn't like to see them or like even think about touching them. And he shares this same fear with Khloe Kardashian, who specifically had this fear during pregnancy. However, hers was a form of omphalophobia that included a fear of her belly coming undone during pregnancy at the belly button.
Ugh.
So little different
so
shades.
Metal Kris and
Khloe
Kardashian. They are just two peas in a pod.
Two peas in an omphallopod.
You guys, we've talked about Metal Kris a lot. We kind of need to give a little picture of Metal Kris. Like Metal Kris is like he's all tatted up. And he's like officer arms, right? I mean, he's got big old muscles. So he's a big dude,
like a brick
shithouse. Yeah, he's a big dude. He's
very imposing, but he is the kindest, most fun to talk to.
Yeah, he's a teddy bear.
So smart.
He's a teddy bear that can kick your ass.
He's a teddy bear that would totally kick your ass. But
if he needed to.
Man, we love them.
Yeah.
Him and his wife, Janelle.
So him and Khloe Kardashian both have fear of belly buttons.
Yeah. They're two.
So I know that I won't stick my finger in his belly button next time I see him.
No, don't do that.
Or will I?
Oh, no. You're the worst
now
person
that I
to tell
know.
stuff to. No, now this is podcast history, so you cannot do that. You have sworn.
All right.
See?
All right, fair enough.
See?
All right, what's
Fair.
the next one? 0 for 1.
You can't not let people be vulnerable with us.
Okay.
Okay. You ready again?
Deal. I'm ready.
Okay. Number 2.
Number 2.
Bathmophobia.
Bath, B-A-T-H?
Uh-huh.
Bathmophobia.
Mo.
Bathmophobia.
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 Bathmophobia. The fear of falling into a river.
No. Wrong.
Anything to do with water at all?
No. Falling, maybe. It's a fear of stairs or inclines. Yeah, right? So more specifically, that fear of ascending and not missing a step and falling. Supposedly Trump is a fear of
Really? Trump
stairs.
has this?
Yeah, apparently Trump has a fear of stairs.
So when he's
Alleged.
So when he's going up and down on Air Force One, there's a lot of fear involved there.
Allegedly. So I don't know how much credence that holds, but I did find a case that I found heartwarming of a man who had bathmophobia for 40 years, who finally overcame it through a lot of therapy and through doing the things that we talk about on here, CBT.
So was this could this be even like minor inclines?
Minor
like going up
inclines.
like little tiny steps or just a few steps?
Yeah, anything that you could imagine throwing your body off a like kilter on. So a curb, getting into the bathtub if it had a high, lip on it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That would be very debilitating.
Yeah, it would be, and it was legitimized because he had a disability, that caused his bones to easily break, and so he had this fear of knocking into something or missing a step that would result in his femur snapping in half.
Wow.
So very legitimate fear, backed by some stuff that he just can't help. But it was really affecting his quality of life. And so he learned and went through therapy and also did physical therapy and anything that he could. After 40 years, he can say that he's genuinely not
over
phobic level with regards to that anymore.
All right, 0 for 2.
I don't know. I'm sad.
Typical.
I know.
You just hate me. I'm gonna have to come up with a trivia game that's related to horror movies.
So that I can epically fail at it?
And do the same thing with you. Especially related to like names of actors.
Oh, and dates?
And dates.
Like, when was this movie come out?
Yeah, what year did this come out?
80.
Directors.
No clue. All right, number 3. Pogonophobia. Pogonophobia.
Okay.
Pogono phobia. Pogonophobia.
P-O-G? P-O-G?
P-O-G.
P-O-G.
O-N-O.
Paganophobia.
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 Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the fear of slammers.
Slammer? Pogs. You're such a 90s kid. Pogs.
The fear of somebody else stealing your slammer in Pogs. I'm pretty certain that's what it is. I had that phobia when I was a kid.
Slammers were so important.
They were.
No, it's the fear of beards.
Oh, man.
You should be aware of this.
That's sad.
I know, it's very sad.
Who would be afraid of beards?
There are accounts that folks are more afraid of politicians inherently who have beards, which is why all politicians in office since the 1800s haven't had a beard.
Pretty much don't have beards?
Yeah. It implies something is untrustworthy because
they're hiding their face.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't feel that. Like, I feel like when I see somebody with a beard, I feel like they're jolly and they're happy.
So beard is jolly and happy
like
to you.
Santa Claus, right? I mean, that's
white beard. That's more like your beard's getting. That
fucker's like the most jolly, happy dude that we're supposed to be letting down our chimney every Christmas.
Yeah, but then we find out he's a fucking...
He's what?
Nothing. My children might listen.
Oh, like Christmas Evil. I watched all those good Christmas, those Santa goes nuts.
Santa's sleigh.
Yeah. So that's it, right? That's my my other failure, my third failure.
That's your third strike. Now you're finally out.
It wasn't the fear of pogs.
No, it wasn't the fear of pogs. I feel like there's just a learned helplessness about you now, where you've just kind of rolling over.
I'm kind of giving up.
And giving up.
A little bit. Yeah, it's like, I'm not even trying anymore.
You're not. Where's your spirit?
Like, my spirit's been sapped from me.
Oh, what can I do to help?
I don't know. I think that, I'm just coming to grips with the fact that I'm just very ignorant of a lot of things.
Of phobias?
Well,
obscure phobias that I scour the internet for hours?
Oh, yeah, our friend Lacey had we had a conversation about her trypophobia? Tryptophobia? Trypophobia. Trypophobia?
I don't know.
The fear of
holes.
The little holes.
The boring
And
holes.
we started talking about how American Horror Story, we just started watching the cult season, which is what, 8? 7? 7, I think. 7. Think it's 7?
Maybe.
And that is a big phobia that's mentioned. There's a lot of phobias mentioned in that season.
So many.
It's a really good season if you're into this kind of shit.
There's so many.
The clown phobia is a big one.
About fear and utilizing fear.
But that one in particular, that hole one, the boring holes.
Oh, the boring hole.
The boring hole fear. Hashtag boring holes. Send us your hashtag boring holes, by the way, because we've talked about Margaret Thatcher on Twitter as being a boring hole. We talked about what's her name? Nirvana
Garbage.
wife, hole chick. What the hell's her name? Damn it. Kurt Cobain's wife. I cannot think of her name for some reason.
You're asking me.
She's a boring hole.
She's so boring we can't remember.
She got a hashtag boring hole. I'm going to think of it in a minute. It's going to drive me crazy. Damn it. It's going to drive me nuts. So yeah, we've had some pictures sent of boring holes, and hashtag boring hole. So on Twitter, send us your hashtag boring holes. And Lacey, stay away from our Twitter because it might freak you out. Because she does not like the holes.
No.
What was interesting about that American Horror Story was like the clown mask. She had a fear of clowns and a fear of the holes. So the clown mask that somebody was wearing had the little tiny holes, the little spore-like holes in it too.
Oh, it was so good.
It's creepy as shit. But with that, we finished up our trivia. Let's talk about our phobia.
Let's do it.
Our phobia for this week is coimetrophobia.
Coimetrophobia.
I dread it's only days, so I'll meet you at the cemetery gates. Cheats and gates that are on your side. I dread it's sunny days, so I'll meet you at the cemetery gates. Cheats and gates are on your side.
And coimetrophobia is the if you want to meet us at the cemetery gates.
Sing it.
Like the song.
Sing it.
Well, they already heard it. I don't need to sing it again.
I wanted you to sing it.
It's a sunny day, so I'll meet you at the cemetery gates.
Yes.
Not so good. I do like some Morrissey, though. I do like the Smiths. I'm a fan. Which, whatever. That doesn't make me less manly.
No, not at all.
Boys cry sometimes, too.
You like way less manly things than this is.
So our phobia for this week is coimetrophobia, which is the abnormal and persistent fear of cemeteries.
Cemeteries. Yeah.
Our fear for today is coimetrophobia, the abnormal and persistent fear of cemeteries.
Oh, I like you trying on voices. Do it again.
And it's, do you want to know the etymology of it?
Yeah.
It's from the Greek koimeterion, which means sleeping room.
Sleeping room.
Or burial place.
Forever sleeping room.
Graveyard or final resting place. That's our etymology. Tell us a little bit about this fear.
Well, you can imagine it comes closely paired with 2 or 3 other fears. One being necrophobia, which is the fear of dead bodies, right?
Not to be confused with necrophilia.
No, not necrophilia.
Which is the banging of dead bodies.
Oh, which is oh, man. Yeah, you said it, not me.
Which, check your morticians, people. If you're hiring a mortician, make sure they're not a necrophiliac, because it's very common Very common.
And they're less common to be a necrophobic.
No, they like the
dead bodies.
Yeah, they're a fan.
Too much, sometimes. Another fear, placophobia, which is the fear of tombstones, specifically. And then tapheophobia, which is the fear of being buried alive.
Stop it.
Has historical roots, right? We were just talking about its historical roots and how they used to take precautions in their cemeteries by installing bells when they would bury the dead. In case someone woke up, they could ring the bell and they could help them out.
Well, which makes sense a little bit because, back before they knew when somebody was in a coma versus when they were dead, or if they couldn't tell if they were completely dead, or, people were revived, especially people who were frozen, people might actually come back to life in the grave.
They didn't know what was going to happen or what could happen.
That sounds creepy as shit.
So, I know we're a lot more educated nowadays, but that also puts us at a lot more distance away from death and dying. Cemeteries are not as integrated into everyday living as they normally would have been. Cemeteries were often located outside of churches, so you at least frequented a cemetery once a week to attend church in many parts of the United States.
So it wasn't as scary because you frequently were there.
You were there.
You were in some, and people died earlier, and there was a lot more death in general in the old days. So
you had to face it so much.
You
it was
faced
just
it more.
One of those things that was part of life. And so as society has advanced and medicine has advanced, we've kind of gotten that distance away from it. So it's a little more intimidating now. It's a little more mysterious. And then we've got movies and pop culture that just infiltrate us with scenes of horror and ideas about never going into a cemetery alone and how they're unsafe places. All of that was just bred in culture, not in, what am I trying to say?
Yeah, it's something that's a cultural phenomenon. The fact that cemeteries are haunted and that they're evil places and all that kind of stuff. Something that's developed over time, as opposed to, in the past, cemeteries were much more common. Every town had a little had a little cemetery. Like
it was less foreign. That was the word.
Yeah, less foreign.
Less foreign.
If you go across the South, right? I spent a lot of time in Tennessee and across a lot of the southern states. There is literally a cemetery
in every town.
Every other block. Not just in every town. It's like there's some towns that have 5, 6, 7 cemeteries. Every church has one in the back. You're passing one all the time. You're constantly, in front of it. So it's probably a less scary thing than like out west. We have very few cemeteries.
We do.
Growing up in Southern California.
Young.
Yeah, we don't have much. More cremation, less burial. It's expensive to bury people. So we don't see them as much out here. But you go back, and then again, if you go back to Europe, there's a shit ton of cemeteries everywhere over in Europe as well, because,
We were just watching that thing on YouTube about the cemetery that just kept burying, like putting more soil down and burying on top of other burial plots.
Oh,
right?
yeah. That was in Poland. I think it was in Poland? No, it was in
Prague.
Yeah, it was in Prague, and they buried. It's got 12 layers of people buried because was it a Jewish cemetery?
Yes, I believe so.
And they would keep burying. So they buried one layer, and then they buried the next layer on top of them, and then on top of them. But they just kept adding tombstones on top of each of them. So the whole place is.
It looked like when you Google Maps food takeout services around you, and the Google Maps just puts up a bunch all in one area. Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
So yeah, it means something different to us nowadays, but there's always been, legends or superstitions or beliefs surrounding cemeteries for as long as we can go back in time. There was ancient Chinese manuscripts about making sure that the dead were always buried with the head of the tombstone at the west and the feet at the east, so that they can see a new sunrise every day in the afterlife.
Where'd you go?
Sorry. I went to reading.
You can't just stop. Radio silence is a thing.
I know. So
you gotta keep talking.
Different burial practices in different cultures and different beliefs and different superstitions.
Have you seen the ones where they bury the people like literally into the mountains?
Yes.
Like right into the like hills?
It's fascinating.
Isn't that a trip?
Yeah, and there's so much belief to do with how something is buried or how someone is buried affects their lineage, affects how they transition or travel to the afterlife, all of that stuff.
Well, you hear a lot about like, so my background in theology, there's a lot about burial because there's a school of thought within Christianity. You hear talk about giving them a Christian burial.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
the reason why the Christian burial thing was such a big deal is because in the book of Revelation and in other parts of the New Testament, there's a lot of talk about a bodily resurrection. So your somewhat uneducated Christians assumed that, well, if there's going to be a bodily resurrection of you after you die, then they must be using your rotted out corpse in the ground. So if that's desecrated or if it's burned or if it's not put in the ground properly,
then you're not going to come back.
You're not going to come back. You're not coming back in the resurrection, which is silly if you really think about the spiritual implications of that. But that's what they thought. So a bodily burial was very important. You couldn't be desecrated in any way. You had to be buried in a grave.
There's a large belief that you can tell what kind of person the person was by what's growing on the grave. So if flowers and, greenery is growing over the grave, then they were more than likely a virtuous person. But if it was weeds and, like mud, then they were more than likely evil.
Huh. So what do you say about those people in the cemeteries in New Orleans where all their tombs? So in New Orleans, obviously, you've seen probably pictures of these, but they're all above ground. Mm-hmm. And they're above ground because of why?
The water table is so low there. New Orleans is a bowl. And so basically you're sitting below sea level. And if you planted them below sea level because of the rates of erosion in a bowl,
the
bodies would just basically start floating in the soil up to the surface anyways. So they buried them in tombs above the surface. And a lot of those got desecrated recently by some of the
vandals
not vandals, by the storm surge. Yeah. So there's some growth in some. Like, what about those? We saw palm trees
coming out the top. Yeah. So that's what I was saying with your
super virtuous person.
With the is it? I mean,
I don't know.
What's the rule of palm trees? There was all kinds of plants growing out of the tops of those tombs, which I thought was really interesting, and it makes sense because there's soil within that tomb, so they're just sprouting up through the top, which is really crazy. Well, and what about the architecture? Like, what happens when the angel's got its head halfway, broken off and stuff? Does that mean you're a bad person?
I don't know.
If the angel's face is broken in half?
It makes for super creepy
photos. Or the cross
photos,
is cut in
half? Yeah. Oh,
we have some great photos. I know I posted some on Twitter and Instagram already, but we'll post some more.
But yeah, if you're anything like us, you might have some mild superstitions surrounding cemeteries. Like we were talking about holding your breath every time you pass a cemetery.
Yeah, my Uncle Kenneth was very, very taught us that when we were kids, that you hold your breath as you go by a cemetery. And there are some cemeteries where that is really fucking difficult.
Do you think he did that just to keep all the kids in the car quiet?
Probably. Especially driving across the South where you're passing them every 10 seconds.
Ken is a genius. There's also another rule that you never count the cars in a procession, or yours will be the next one to drive by.
Ooh.
You never point in a cemetery. Whistling in a cemetery will summon the devil. If there's thunder following a burial, then that means the dead have reached heaven. And
Yeah.
What else you got?
There's some great Manx folklore from the British Isles that tells of how to avoid a buggar attack, which is this big headless horseman, well, sort of thing. He could remove his head and, like, throw it at you, and he could chase you down, but he could not enter into the churchyard. And so that was the place that you could seek refuge, and he would get so angry that you would seek refuge there that he would rip his head off and throw it at you. There are some other frequenters of cemeteries, like cats. We see cats associated with cemeteries a lot, right? At Greyfriars Churchyard in Edinburgh, Scotland. Edinburgh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. That was really rude of me to correct you.
I haven't been there.
What a douchey move.
It's okay. No, I didn't say it right. You were correct. Anyways, legend has it that a 19th century Skye Terrier, a dog named Bobby, haunts the grave of his master. He waited 14 years after his master died, and he still haunts the grave, waiting for him to come back to this day.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about dogs and cemeteries.
Oh, I know, right?
At least a scene. One of my favorite scenes.
Folks that experience coimetrophobia, have all of the anxiety and panic symptoms. They try to avoid cemeteries. They don't like scenes with cemeteries in them. It makes them incredibly uncomfortable to the point where they're having panic attack symptoms. And in general, it affects the way that they live their everyday lives. They may have to move out of an area that has a lot of cemeteries because they just have such a visceral reaction to seeing them.
Well, I gotta say, like, cemeteries are pretty creepy.
They are.
Do you get creeped out when you go into a cemetery?
I do and I don't. I find them very peaceful.
I find them really fascinating. Do you think the there's a lot of fascination, I think, particularly with, like, weirdos and
Feardos.
Like us, that people kind of are drawn to those things too. Like, they're drawn to I've always found them fascinating because I've always found death fascinating. I found, what happens after death, what goes on, this whole process of burying somebody is a very strange thing.
It's not about the dead. It's about the living.
Have you ever been to an actual funeral at a graveyard?
Yes.
I've only been to, like, a few in my life. Not very many, and every time I go, I'm like, this is a weird process.
It's not about the dead. It's about the living.
Sure. Sure. And about honoring and all that kind of stuff too, but
right.
It's a very odd process.
But if you think about it, cemeteries are full of dead skeletons, right? Well, so are the dark recesses of our minds full of skeletons. I thought that was cool.
Reaching.
Hey, whatever. No, I mean, I think there has to be something there about being scared or intimidated to question your own mortality.
Yeah, it's confronting mortality.
And to ask what happens after, though.
Yeah.
What do I believe happens after? Because what I believe now is what I believe happens after.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that curiosity because death is such an unknown. And I think we talked about that, even back in the first episode of the podcast, right? Darkness and death and fear of, so many of our fears really come back to that eternity, right? That fear of that final
after.
Thing,
the final frontier.
Yeah.
And what other than a cemetery helps you confront that final frontier?
Yeah.
There's just appropriate bodies everywhere.
Yeah. Putting somebody in the ground is it's an experience where you go, oh, this is going to be me someday. I'm going to experience this at some point. And this is a very visceral, scary concept. If you're,
and I can
if
see
your
why
world, if your worldview doesn't include a peaceful ending of some kind, it's terrifying.
I can also see though why people would be uncomfortable with cemeteries, much like they're uncomfortable with going into hospitals.
Yeah.
Like you never want to go to one unless you really have to.
Yeah.
Right? Or you work there. Like nobody is really super excited to go to the hospital usually, unless couple reasons.
Well, I remember nursing homes when I was a kid. I remember going into my first nursing home, visiting as in school, you'd go visit and they'd do a performance or whatever. And I remember walking down the hallways and being like, damn, it's really scary to be right on the doorstep of death.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a place like that, very, very scary. And so a cemetery brings that all to that conclusion.
You've got the dead bodies, you've got the fear of death, you've got the fear of being buried alive, you've got all that anxiety.
How awesome is I love them because I love the history, I love the gothicness of it, I love the whole scene of a cemetery there is something very peaceful about it. Like you said, there's something very peaceful and so it's kind of a weird catch-22.
I don't know why I find it peaceful though, because
creepy peacefulness.
No, I don't know why I find it now you got me all twisted. I don't know why I find it peaceful because I haven't dealt with my own mortality a smidgen. So
well, maybe a smidgen.
No, not even a smidgen. So, that's a terrifying thing to me. But yet when I get into a cemetery, something else just kind of takes over and I just wander around and kind of think about who these people might have been and what their life story might have been.
We have a great cemetery near us that we've frequented a few times because we live near Virginia City, which is a great old Old West
stock
town. It was at one point it was the richest city in the world, right?
Yeah.
More millionaires in Virginia City back in the late 1800s than anywhere in the world. And they were a cool ass old Wild West town. Mark Twain lived there. He was the editor of the paper and all that stuff. But they have a cemetery there that's all sectioned off into different nationalities, and the whores were buried over here, and the Japanese servants were buried over here, and it's a really crazy cemetery, and it's old as shit, and it's big. Mm-hmm. It's really big.
It's
and
really
very creepy.
Very creepy, but
I got drunk there at night once.
Oh,
yeah,
see,
passed out and didn't pass out, but I was drinking straight from a bottle of way back about 10 years ago.
I might feel different if we visited at night. I think there's just something unnerving about not being able to see what's in the dark, and that's more of a dark thing than I think a cemetery thing.
For sure.
But it might be a little bit of both. But I can see how folks would just have an inherent dislike for being in a cemetery in general and have a dis-ease associated with it.
So does it surprise you that cemeteries are main settings for horror movies?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, there's such a supernatural element to it, already kind of built into it with the spirituality. Then there's something kind of unnerving about being around a bunch of dead bodies.
Well, we got ghosts, we got fucking zombies,
yeah.
we got all kinds of things.
You never go there at night. You got superstitions.
Yeah.
You got witches can't touch down on a cemetery.
You really
right?
want to talk Hocus Pocus, don't you?
I do.
You really do.
I like Hocus Pocus.
I don't have it listed, but
I know
it's going to be there somewhere.
I do like Hocus Pocus. It's here. It's here now.
Well, let's transition from our phobia into our movies.
Well, you used to really be scared here.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now. I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
Johnny. Oh, no! No! Johnny! Help me!
So cemeteries and horror movies go together like fucking peas and carrots.
Like butter and grits.
Like peas and carrots they do, like biscuits and gravy.
Like tornadoes and hurricanes.
They go together really well because fucking horror movies, there are cemetery scenes in like just a bazillion
Horror movies prey on the fact that cemeteries are naturally creepy places for a lot of folk.
I mean,
especially at
zombies,
night.
Yeah, zombies and everything.
Something dead is gonna come alive. Ah!
My first thought of cemeteries and horror movies was Night of the Living Dead and zombies just wandering through, like, coming out of the graves and walking through the graveyard. That's a pretty iconic scene. I had to think of, before I got into, actual movies that were centered around cemeteries, I had to think of, I was thinking of, scenes, best horror movie scenes. You brought up Hocus Pocus, so that was yours. That's yours. Mine. That was your cutesy little horror movie. And that's a great movie. Hocus Pocus is great.
Awesome movie.
And Mick Garris, we love you, and we love that you worked on Hocus Pocus. It's such a cool movie. We introduced it to our boys really for the first time this year, and they had a blast with it.
Yeah.
And those witches did not
timeless.
Did not like that graveyard one bit. And a lot of that movie, there was a graveyard that was very central to that movie.
And there was a dead Billy.
Dead Billy. Was cruising around in his zombie Billy. But I had to think of some of my favorite scenes from graveyards. One of my top 3 movies of all time, The Omen, which I just fucking love that movie so much.
What's your top 2 and 1?
I don't know.
I feel
The Exorcist is in there. The Omen's in there. Rosemary's Baby was my number 1 for a long time. Are they all what?
Are they all
like possession?
Yeah.
Like spiritual type ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those have always been my favorites. Those have always been my tops.
So what is it about something taking over?
I don't know. That's a
you?
different podcast. We can't dig into that right now. I have way too many fucking scenes to cover right now. We cannot do this. We're already 50 minutes into this podcast.
Okay. I will not sidetrack.
Don't sidetrack me.
I will not tangent. I will not tangent.
Because I will go off on my top 10 movies of all time.
You will go off?
Go off.
Oh. Will you step up?
I will step up.
To the streets?
To the streets. But The Omen's got a great cemetery scene. But you can't make it... I couldn't make it the feature presentation because it's just one scene.
It's a scene, yeah.
But Gregory Peck... in the graveyard when the Rottweilers, the demon fucking dogs, are coming down on him, and he's looking through the grave trying to find his dead baby and all the crazy shit that's going on. That's a badass scene, a super cool cemetery scene. So that's one, okay. And I'm gonna go the opposite end of the cinematic experience to Friday the 13th Part 6.
Jeez.
Part 6.
That's deep.
Jason Lives, which is also a great cemetery scene for all horror fans when Jason comes back to life after lightning strikes. What? Yeah, lightning strikes. Jason, the guys have dug up his grave and lightning strikes, and then Jason comes back. Because you got to have ways to bring back.
Hell yeah.
You got to have ways to bring back your slasher. So that's a great one. Return of the Living Dead, which I wanted really badly to make one of my top movies for this deal, and it just got beat out barely. But Linnea Quigley dancing naked on the tombstones in Return of the Living Dead, punk rock as shit.
So punk rock.
It is such a fucking great movie. It is amazing. I don't think you've ever seen it.
No,
have you?
I haven't.
You need to see that movie.
I'm pretty sure
so
when we were
hilarious.
watching those clips earlier that butt scene was from Return of the Living Dead.
Maybe. It might have been. What was
I saw
that
a butt scene. I don't know. She was just stumbling towards a house, and it was just her backside.
Oh, probably.
And then some other...
She gets taken over. So eventually, all these punk rockers are in the graveyard, and they're dancing, they're partying, they're drinking and shit. She just decides to take off all of her clothes, and
as you do in a punk rock graveyard
when
dance.
you're punkers hanging out in a graveyard, and she just dances like buck naked, one of the first probably full frontal nudity scenes I ever saw when I was growing up.
Oh.
And
impressionable Drew.
I love Linnea Quigley too. She's going to be at the
HorrorCon.
The HorrorCon as well, the Sacramento.
We gotta go to that.
Yeah,
that's your birthday present.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And she's also the chick in What were we watching? Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh,
that gets put up onto,
that was a good one.
That gets thrown up onto the antlers. The
Yes.
antlers. Yeah, same actress.
Okay.
She's amazing. She's a scream queen for sure. She's awesome. So that is and there's tons of great graveyard scenes in that movie too. So that is a really good one for sure to check out. But one of my favorites, and actually you're asking what my top 10 movies.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, and I really want, if you're listening and you agree with me, please let me know, because I've always felt a little insecure about this one.
Insecure?
Insignificant? Insecure about my love of Wes Craven's New Nightmare, because I don't feel like it gets the credit it deserves. It is such a good nightmare. It's not even a sequel. It's like a total meta. Heather Langenkamp is playing herself. Wes Craven's playing himself. Robert Englund's playing himself, and then the whole Freddy thing comes into their real lives is the whole basis of the movie. I freaking love that movie. But it has a great graveyard scene too, where Heather Langenkamp is mourning her husband who got killed by Freddy. And then an earthquake happens at the funeral, and she falls and she stumbles and she knocks her head open. And then her son Dylan, by the way, is played by Micah Hughes, who is going to be in our feature presentation as well when he was much younger, well, at least a few years younger. And he's also the Boys Have a Penis, Girls Have a Vagina kid.
From Kindergarten Cop?
From Kindergarten Cop.
Oh.
Yeah. Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina.
Kindergarten kids are so cute.
Yeah, that kid's my hero. He didn't have to do any other movies after those three, and he's a stud. But he falls into his father's casket, and then Freddy grabs him and pulls him down into the ground. And Heather Langenkamp dives in and to save him, and her husband.
Then the body's right there.
Yeah, and then her husband's corpse comes to life and starts talking to her.
Nope.
And tells him to join him or something like that. That's a fucking great scene.
Oh, no.
Great scene, great cemetery scene, great funeral scene. But again, it's not the whole movie.
What about the cemetery scene,
Just a great scene
in The Exorcist?
The Exorcist? What cemetery scene in The Exorcist?
I don't know, where all of the dead bodies of the grave underneath the... Or no, not The Exorcist.
Sorry, Poltergeist? Man, you were so bad at the horror movies.
I know, I'm so bad.
Poltergeist is a great one, too. That's a really good one, actually. Yeah, because you're talking about Indian burial grounds.
They're on the Indian burial ground, and the rain brings
pool,
all
they're
the
building
graves
the pool,
up.
the bodies come
the
up.
graves.
Yeah, that's a really good one, too.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I thought about that one, too. I thought about Poltergeist being a good one, but ultimately, and there's some other good ones too. Cemetery Man's a good one. Totally weird ass movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Grave Dancers is another one that's kind of a little bit more low. It's a little bit cheesy in parts, but it's a pretty cool movie too, and it's all centered around a graveyard as well. Creepshow is another one that has a great. It's an anthology, but one of the segments has a couple of cool, really good graveyard scenes as well. But I couldn't pick any of those. Because they didn't
shine.
Center around graveyards the way that I wanted them to. So my main honorable mention today, those are my best scenes, cemetery scenes, but my main honorable mention for today is the 1979 Don Coscarelli classic, Phantasm.
Phantasm, the delusion of a disordered mind, a phantom, a spirit, a ghost. For nearly 4 decades it has been contained, but evil always has a way of breaking free.
Tommy's gone. It's hard to believe. It was a good idea not to let your little brother come to the funeral.
Hey, I don't like this place. Something weird is going on out there.
The funeral is about to begin, sir.
What's wrong with you?
There's something up there. I saw it.
You got some kind of an overactive imagination or something?
I know you're not going to believe this, but these things were here.
Oh, give me a break. you gotta do is lay that sucker out flat and drive a stake right through his goddamn heart.
You're gonna run that tall bastard straight down to hell.
You play a good game, boy. But the game is finished. Now you die.
Phantasm.
Don't fear.
And really, you could talk about the whole franchise, right? I mean, you could talk about the whole Phantasm franchise.
Or you could let Joe Bob tell you all about it.
Or you could let Joe Bob tell you all about it. Damn it, was that a great
Available
marathon.
on Shudder.
Yeah, Shudder.
So good.
At Christmas, instead of doing Christmas movies.
I thought it was Thanksgiving.
No, that was Christmas.
Oh, that was Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe Bob did a Phantasm Christmas because he said those were the best Christmas movies he
Nothing
could do.
will put you in the spirit like death hunting you down in a cemetery.
Oh, dude, yeah, he defended very strongly that the Phantasm franchise was the best Christmas marathon that
I demand more proof, Joe Bob.
If you don't have Shudder, get Shudder just for the Joe Bob marathons because they're fantastic. And he breaks this whole series down, except for number 2, because there's a whole bunch of weird rights to Phantasm 2. But he says the reason is that he didn't cover Phantasm 2 was because they destroyed the 1973 Barracuda, like it destroyed it. He was very sad.
Oh.
Or 1971 Barracuda. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, they
what
killed her.
Was. he was very upset and believed that was.
You could see thousands of peoples die, but one Barracuda.
One beautiful, beautiful classic car. But if you haven't seen Phantasm, you should because it's a classic. I mean, it's probably one of the I consider it one of the best horror franchises of all time for sure. And Don Coscarelli is the fucking coolest director ever. Bubba Hotep, which we watched.
Oh God, that's my favorite.
Yeah, Kris actually loves Bubba Hotep.
Bubba Hotep.
Not just because Bruce Campbell's in it, as Elvis.
And because Bruce Campbell's in it. But I
Which is so
also
good.
love the premise of Bubba Hotep.
Yeah. You got old Elvis in a nursing home with old
like you had me
with
there.
old black JFK.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great movie. I remember the first time I saw that one, I was like, who the hell is this Don Coscarelli guy? And that's how I found Phantasm. Actually, it was after I watched that one.
He's got some weird ideas, man.
I love it.
I like it.
It's so good. So if you haven't watched Phantasm, here's a quick synopsis. Mike, a young teenage boy who has just lost his parents, afraid of losing his brother, follows him to a funeral, where Mike witnesses the tall man lifting a coffin on his own. Mike decides to investigate and discovers that the tall man, protected by his flying spheres, is shrinking dead bodies down to half their normal size and reanimating them as slaves. It is then up to Mike, his brother, and Reggie the Ice Cream Man to stop the tall man. Which is just the craziest freaking storyline ever.
I feel like if you're in a weed legal state, you need to watch it.
And Joe Bob makes that very clear too. Like there's the Colorado states and the Texas states.
Yes!
And the Colorado states need to smoke a lot of weed before they watch Phantasm, and the Texas states just need to drink a lot of tequila and whiskey before they.
Yeah, that's a great
point.
point.
Or while they're watching.
That's such a weird concept, and I truly still couldn't, I just couldn't grasp it, really. Even as you were retelling it, I'm like, I just don't understand how they put that together into a movie, but somehow they made it into a movie.
I mean, the opening scene...
It's weird.
Honestly, the whole franchise is perfect for the whole cemetery theme, because you've got mausoleums, you've got this Morningside cemetery where right in the very first scene we got some sweet graveyard sex going down, which turns deadly. That's how the opening murder happens, and then. During the funeral, we got the older brother, Jody, and he's wandering through this creepy-ass mausoleum.
Oh.
The mausoleum's so good. I believe the mausoleum is in Long Beach.
Oh, when all the bodies grab him out of the mausoleum, one that opens up and they all grab him out of it.
Oh, that was Mike. That was Mike, and that's later. That's later. But the beginning, like Jody's cruising around the mausoleum, and it's just this super creepy place. And then his brother Mike's outside in the graveyard, and they both start seeing weird shit. And he sees these little munchkin dudes running around.
Does not make it any better.
Oh, it's great. Oh, the score's so good.
The score just intensifies things.
So then Mike's sensing something's weird. So Mike, the little brother, like goes back to the graveyard and he gets out some binoculars and he's watching, and he sees this mortician, the tall man, who ends up being called the Tall Man, played by the incredible actor Angus Scrimm, who is just a freaking treasure, and he passed away a couple years ago. But and he sees Angus Scrimm pick up the casket that weighs like, a ton, and just throw it in the back of his hearse instead of leaving it in the ground. And Mike's like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I just saw this dude just hulk out and lift this coffin and throw it in the back of the hearse. Like, is he like superhuman? Like, what the hell? And goes back and tells his brother. Brother doesn't believe him. And then, craziness ensues. Like the rest of the time, like they're fighting against this tall man who's basically this time traveler dude who is creating this slave race of dwarves,
zombie dwarves,
out of these graves, and in the future, in the sequels, like he's going through and clearing whole graveyards out to create these little dwarves, and
which
there's
is
just
a
so
really
much
creepy idea.
Oh, yeah.
That some minion is just using these bodies.
Yeah, it's great. The Phantasm series, like I honestly watch Joe Bob break it down because he does a great job. I couldn't even touch the surface of it. All you need to know is there's a lot of creepy cemetery shit and a lot of crazy like mausoleums and weird spheres going into brains. And
yeah, if you've got a fear of cemeteries, these are not the movies for you.
Yeah, Phantasm definitely centers around.
If they are the movies for you, go get Shudder.
Yeah, get some Shudder. Like, we're not being paid by Shudder, but I really do like Shudder. It is a great service.
You're on it all the time.
I am, because they have great stuff. They curate their horror movies, and they have some cool shit, man. So if you're not on it, you should be on it, because it's cheap, too. It's like $5 a month. It's like nothing. So Phantasm, guys, check it out. Check out Joe Bob's Marathon, where he breaks down Phantasm, Phantasm 3, Phantasm 4, and even the last one, Ravager, which is a newer sequel that it's apocalyptic and crazy. So that's our honorable mention, is Phantasm. So check out the Phantasm series. But let's get we're in a time crunch here. We're rambling a lot today. So let's get into our feature presentation.
And now our feature presentation.
What is this place?
I brought you here to bury Alan's cat.
Daddy, is church all right?
Why, Judd?
I believe.
I dreamed he got hit by a car and you and Mr. Crandall buried him in the Pet Sematary.
What did we do tonight, Judd?
What we did, Lois, was a secret.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Has anyone ever buried a person up there?
May the Lord make his face to shine upon you.
You're thinking thoughts best not thought of.
Daddy's gonna do something really bad.
You're thinking of putting him up there. Don't deny the thought hadn't crossed your mind.
Come back to me, Gage. Come back to us.
Paramount Pictures presents Stephen King's all-time best-selling tale of horror, Pet Sematary.
So our feature presentation is Pet Sematary, which
a classic.
It is a classic
that we had never seen.
That I have to confess, I had never seen the original before.
Yeah.
And we are totally 100% milking the fact that Pet Sematary is really big right now, and the new one's coming out. And the reboot's coming out soon, which the trailer looks awesome. for the new one. But but after I watched it, I was like, you know what? This one kind of deserves to be the feature presentation. It's a pretty badass. I mean, it's got cemetery in the title, even though it's spelled wrong. And I can never fucking spell cemetery right to begin with.
The entire research of all this, I couldn't.
Did you do the same thing?
Yep.
I could not spell cemetery right.
Tary.
I'm a writer and an editor, and I spelled it with an A every fucking time. It was driving me nuts. It's supposed to be, it's ERY, which I spelled it ARY every single time.
Is there some sort of like, can we petition that with a way with words and see if technically that's in?
It should be spelled differently?
Yeah,
or?
like maybe we get it from a specific region somewhere.
I don't know. But it messed me up every time. And then
Screwed with me.
And then Pet Sematary has the balls, Stephen King. You have the balls to spell cemetery with two A's and an S and fuck me up even further. Which I did some research about that, and I think it had something to do with that kids spelled it, so they were spelling it wrong because kids were spelling it like phonetically, which is probably the way that it should be spelled.
Well, it's the little kid that comes to life again.
No. Yeah, that's not the one who
spells it. Cemetery.
No, he's not.
No,
that's wrong. Completely wrong. Like way wrong.
Dang it.
Where did you even get that?
Nothing. I was just making it up.
The Pet Sematary they showed at the very beginning. They showed the whole Pet Sematary, and it was already spelled out.
I know.
Way before that. That cemetery was old. The Pet Sematary. You crack me up when you just make up your own storyline.
Yeah, why not?
You're like, I watched it, but I only didn't really watch it.
I didn't really watch it. I watched it, but I didn't really.
She watches every one of these movies so half-assed.
No.
Yes,
no.
You half-ass your horror movies.
I did not. The Trauma movie or the Oz movie.
Oh, that's true. Those two you watched more intently. But we did watch Pet Sematary, and you just completely blew it.
I was not in the mood for horror.
So Pet Sematary, guys, if you haven't seen it, like us, which I cannot believe that I've gone my whole life. I'm a big Stephen King fan, too, and I even read the book, but I had never seen the movie. And the movie was really good. The original was great. I could see it being, especially if you grew up in that time. Like, if you grew up, it came out in 89, so it's a really good, kinder trauma type movie for kids that are probably our age, your age.
Yeah, my
perfectly,
age.
5, it'd be about 4, 5, 6 years old when it came out. If you happen to see it, when you were, in your younger years, it would be a really good.
I thought there was going to be a lot more zombie animals, though.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I had always had the thought in my head that there was a lot more like zombie pets, and really it was just the cat.
Just the cat.
In the first one. So let me give you a quick rundown. So Dr. Lewis Creed moves his family to Maine, where he meets a friendly local named Judd Crandall, played by Fred Gwynne, who is Herman Munster. After the Creed's cat is accidentally killed, Crandall advises Lewis to bury it in the ground near the old Pet Sematary. The cat returns to life, and its personality changed for the worse. When Lewis's son Gage, played by Miko Hughes, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina, but when he was little, like, I don't know, how old could he be? 2, maybe? 2.5?
Maybe 2.5.
He was
3.
Little.
I don't know.
Yeah. Then he dies tragically, and Lewis decides to bury the boy's body in the same ground.
Because that's a good idea.
Despite the warnings of Crandall and Lewis's visions of a deceased patient. So, first of all, I gotta say, I love Fred Gwynne, and I love the fact that he's Fred, that he's Herman Munster. He's a wonderful guy, but in this movie, he is a bumbling idiot. Like, Judd Crandall is not very smart. You might know him better as Herman Munster. Tall, big old, good old boy dude.
If you close your eyes, you know who he is because of his voice.
In this movie, he's really good at scaring the shit out of little children, first of all.
Missy Ellen, come over here just a minute. That's where I buried my dog Spot when he died of old age in 1924. Ellie, do you know what a graveyard really is?
Well, I guess not.
It's a place where the dead speak. No! not right out loud. Their stones speak, or their markers. This ain't a scary place, Ellie. It's a place of rest and speaking. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
So he's like, let me walk you to this creepy graveyard and then tell your daughter about how the graves are talking and the dead people are talking or whatever.
Just gotta respect the dead.
Not cool, Herman Munster. Like, not cool, freaking the shit out of this little girl. You know, that doesn't seem very cool. But then he's not done yet. You know, then they're like, the daughter's like sacred little cat that she loves so much dies.
Churchill.
And so Church was his name. Oh, was it Church? Yeah, Winston Churchill, and they call him Church for short, right? Yeah, that's right, Churchill. So we're not going to just bury it in the pet cemetery that they had showed down the street, right? The creepy ass pet cemetery. No, we're going to take it up to the Indian burial ground. So Judd convinces the dad to take the cat to the place that he knows is like all fucked up, where people come back to life.
Not quite themselves.
Because he grew up in this place and knows that this is a bad idea.
What if he's in on it?
Come on, Judd. Get your shit together, bud. And, you know, he knows it's going to come back to life. And sure enough, it does. And it's all wonky and zombified. You know, we got the zombified cat. So, you know, damn it, Herman Munster. Stop fucking up, bud. Like, not cool, you know?
Don't teach people to do that.
So then, after Zombie Cat comes back, you know, everything seems to be cool and everything's good, except Dad's having some, like, you know, crazy shit happening at work with, like, bodies coming back to life and talking to him. So something's already a little strange. And then we get their little kid, Gage.
Oh.
Is flying a kite and everybody's having fun outside.
That scene was brutal.
And
the shoe.
And he
runs out into the street.
Drops his kite, so his kite's running away, and he's chasing after it, and he gets fucking plowed over, blammo, by a semi-truck. Which Herman Munster told him, like cats and dogs and animals get run over by trucks all the time. It's a busy road. Okay, am I the only one that has watched this movie and thought, maybe build a fucking fence?
I don't know.
Maybe build a fence so your kid doesn't run into the street? So that you don't lose your animals? Like, I'm like smacking my head here going, just a fence would have prevented this.
It wasn't the part about, like, the animals coming back to life that you were like, how does this happen? It was the fact that they didn't build a fence.
It was the fact that these parents are just fucking stupid. Like,
they didn't build a fence.
Build a damn fence. Like, that'd be my first job. Like, I moved into this house and I know, like, that it's a busy street right out there and people are prone to get hit and animals are prone. Build a fucking fence. Like, it doesn't take that much effort. You know,
build a fence.
Just build it.
Also, don't bury your child in the ancient burial ground.
So that's what happens next. They're very distraught about their child being plowed blammo by
which totally understand.
Understandable. I get it.
That was a brutal scene.
Very sad. It was actually
shoe
was a pretty
flew
brutal
off.
scene.
Made me very sad. See, I watched.
Bloody shoe.
It was awful.
Yeah, bloody shoe, and we know he just got smacked, man.
You just got smacked across the face, my son.
my friend. So Dad's distraught. Right, Mom and Dad are distraught. They're not not happy. So Dad decides that he's gonna go bury the son in the Indian burial ground to bring him back to life. But he's not gonna let anybody know. He's just gonna test it out. And if he comes back all wonky, he'll kill him again.
Yeah, because that'll happen.
That's his idea.
That'll happen.
And what does he get?
Zombie child.
Zombie baby. Right.
Zombie toddler, which is like 10 times worse than regular toddler.
And that's
already bad.
And it's a fucking scary little zombie baby too. Like, it's a
your
creepy.
Scariest part.
Pretty creepy. Oh, so then zombie comes back, creepy zombie kid, and he finds Dad's medical bag and grabs a scalpel and goes over to good old dumbass Judd's house. And do you want to tell everybody what I was doing right there?
Dumbass Judd, he was like, like Popeye style, swinging his arms back and forth, like yo ho.
She was laughing at me because I was doing arm. I do a lot of. I talk with my hands a lot.
Even though it's a podcast and no one can see you but me.
So he goes over to Herman Munster's house, and decides to play hide and seek with Herman Munster.
Because
zombie baby, creepy zombie baby.
That's what they do.
Yeah, and hides under the bed and slices Judd's Achilles in half, which is my fucking worst nightmare. Like,
if you're over age 30, you need to make sure you stretch your Achilles before any sort of athletic activity.
Didn't we already talk about this?
Snapping your Achilles is very easy.
What was the other episode we talked about?
I don't know, but
you gave that same warning.
It needs a reminder. I care about you. I love you all. Stretch your Achilles tendon.
That would not make any difference if a zombie baby decides to slice into it with a scalpel.
Run away faster.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that
I don't know
that Herman Munster did not see it coming.
Maybe you could have kicked the zombie baby in the face
across the room. Yeah, I don't like that at all. I was
with
not
your
a fan.
Zombie kicking legs.
Oof. So yeah, he cuts Herman Munster, and then he ends up killing him and ripping his face off and all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah, all that's fine, but...
And then Mom comes home from like a business trip or something, and because she has these visions, and she knows she needs to get back home, and she runs into Zombie Baby, and Zombie Baby kills her.
Oh, man.
And then Dad realizes that Zombie Baby is Zombie Baby.
Oh.
Cold
realization.
Finds dead Herman Munster. And dead Mom. Well, assumes Mom's dead. Or no, finds dead Mom, I guess. And then does the same fucking thing with Mom.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I think at that point he was just like, fuck it. Like, that was his suicide. Was like, I'm just going to go bury Mom.
I know.
And then when Mom comes back in her oozing eyeball.
He's fraught with grief and he just wants his family back. But, you're not actually getting them back, are you?
No. And Looney Tunes' dad makes out with Mom at the end, right? And her eyeball's all oozing.
Yeah.
It's like missing an eyeball. It's all oozing out her socket.
Oh, eyeball stuff is pretty bad.
So, big old Stephen King, what the fuck, as usual. I'm glad I watched this movie finally. It's one of those that I've always wanted to.
Fuck.
Always felt a little bit of a missing piece in my life that I hadn't seen Pet Sematary all the way through. Honestly, I thought I had seen it.
Well, now a piece of your soul is fulfilled and you can die happy.
It's back.
And we can put you in a cemetery. A pet cemetery.
I don't. There's a great soundtrack. Ramones are all over it, man.
Oh, yeah.
Was it, I don't want to be buried in a pet cemetery. So good.
Alexa, play Pet Sematary.
Alexa's not plugged in.
Oh, never mind.
Now you just turned everybody else's Alexa on?
Never mind.
And ours
For
didn't
everyone
play.
else, you guys are listening to Pet Sematary now.
I'll end it. I'll end the episode with Ramone's Pet Sematary.
Perfect.
With no copyright violations whatsoever. So the new one's coming out. The new Pet Sematary
When is that coming out?
coming out. I want to say it's coming out in April.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and it looks pretty. It looks good so far. John Lithgow plays Judd.
I love
the
him.
Herman Munster role.
The Trinity Killer. In
Yeah,
Dexter.
John Lithgow's played some cool roles. We've already talked about him once in our Aerophobia episode, Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
I love John Lithgow. That guy's awesome, man. And Third Rock from the Sun too. Great,
Not horror.
Great show. Not horror.
Alien.
Still pretty badass. So that's my movie.
I like it.
That was our movies.
I mean, Pet Sematary was pretty good.
Yeah.
Phantasm,
some more Stephen King fucked up
weird
shit, man.
Trip.
That guy just has a really messed up brain.
Yeah, but
I follow him on Twitter a lot. And he's hilarious.
There's a fine line between genius and madness.
It's no doubt about it. That was a clunky episode. Did you feel clunky?
I felt a little clunky getting back, yeah.
I just didn't feel as smooth as
I think we should edit it heavily.
No, I don't know about that. We'll see. We'll see how long this episode took. It seems like a kind of a long one. But that was our special episode.
Yeah. What do we have next week?
I think we're going to dive into
agoraphobia, right?
Agoraphobia is the next one.
Agoraphobia,
which
next
my
week.
mom suffers from, my aunt suffers from, my grandmother suffered from.
Lots of family history.
Yeah.
We can talk about why that is genetically.
Yeah. I wonder if I have a little piece of that too. Who
I don't
knows?
know. Do you?
Maybe.
Let's find out.
I don't know.
Next week?
We're going to find out next time.
Next week.
Next time.
Next time.
Next episode.
Next week.
Next Sum of All Fear episode.
Next time we see you.
And what should people do?
They should listen to the Sum of All Fear podcast.
And then what?
You should stay afraid. Stay very afraid.